Friday, Bellini, Arnold, Mendez, and we're evaluating the weather. Obviously, the outlook for Sunday is not great, so we'll try to finalize a decision on how to manage that day. Do we need to bump up and try to play 2 games on Saturday? So we'll sort that out this afternoon. But it actually looks similar to last weekend where that rough weather rolled in, and it was rough last Sunday. It appears to be similar. So Boston College is aware of a necessity to possibly get a 2 on Saturday, and we're okay if we need to do that. So Jamie, good. And when you have a setback like that, we're not trying to necessarily pull people back to throw on a certain day of the weekend. We have 3 competitive starting pitchers, and it doesn't really matter who throws when. We felt like that was the best thing. We're waiting on some more testing on Crest, so hopefully that's not a severe issue, but clearly that put a damper on how that game Tuesday started. But we're in good shape. BC, very experienced, probably the oldest. 10 seniors or grads on the pitching staff. Very balanced, and they've moved guys around. They've done a nice job finding the right roles for their pitching staff. They had a really nice weekend. When you go to Virginia and win a series, that says enough about their capabilities. Todd does a very nice job instilling his personality and his type of play to the team. A little more action oriented than some of the teams we've seen, but they do a really good job, and our hands are going to be full with this. So hopefully we can get back in rhythm here. And it's nice to know that Jamie is doing real well, had a good week. And it's nice to clearly know that he's back in the equation for us.
Coach, you kind of touched on it last Saturday, but Saturday you changed the lineup a little bit and then you kept with it on Tuesday. What were you hoping to get out of that? And do you think that's a lineup that you're going to continue to go with moving forward, or you're going to try to move some pieces around coming into this weekend?
Well, you kind of look at who you're facing, and that does factor in. Clearly, the at bats Tuesday not great, and we like to go left, right, like when you can, and you have a switch hitter in there, which helps. For a while, we had 2. So you kind of look at a lot of different reasons to do it, and I'm not set on any one thing. Clearly, I was very impressed with Florida's arms, and all of the guys had really good stuff. So I'm not set on any specific lineup. Quite frankly, we're a little limited with our personnel options in some areas. So how you move them around, it's something we have to look at as we enter that specific game and who they are starting. And they've used different starters. I think the righty, if they go with Kip again, it's kind of a right-handed sinker, good slider, uses his changeup. So we'll sort it out. At the end of the day, and we've talked about this all year. I know we look at our numbers and offensively they look fine, but I've had concerns, and I've told you guys about just the consistency of the quality of the at-bat, the timing of fastballs, and then unpacking the secondary pitches in those short little stints where you have a 100th of a second to figure out what that secondary pitch looks like and where it's going. So that's something I've seen, but it has been a concern with just the flat out consistency of the recognition and the quality of that bat, regardless of where we put some of the pieces. I've seen all the guys do it. We just haven't done it maybe as consistently as I would like to feel like you have a threatening 9 guys top to bottom that roll that thing over 4 or 5 times, giving you a real competitive look.
Last week and this week is where you really start to build up the pitchers. Maybe they're pushing triple digits. How does last week affect Jamie's buildup? I guess what kind of pitch count do you expect him to be on after a week off?
Well, I think when you look at it, he hasn't thrown more than 75 pitches or so. And I don't have it in front of me as what his workload has been. It hasn't been as extensive as when you look around the country of what a lot of guys have done. And there were some awkward, I think I look back, it might have been the Georgetown series where we actually scored a lot and there were pitching changes and he had very lengthy repeated downtime. So we were concerned about that and didn't lengthen him out. So it's just been one of those things where we've been on the conservative side. We haven't just let guys run. We do like our depth in the bullpen. And there have been times we've wanted to get other guys a look early in the season so they experience what it's like out there and we learn more about their capabilities. So we are at a point where we need to do it. With Jamie, he's probably still in that threshold of 75 pitches tops, I would guess. Mike and I talked a little bit about it yesterday. He just finished his work today, so we haven't really met to see where we're headed with that Saturday. But logically, you're probably not going to go from 75 off a week to thinking somebody's going to go throw 110 pitches.
I know with the rotation again. I know you talked about kind of being high on all three of your arms and the order maybe not mattering as much. I know next week things move up a week, right, with a Thursday through Saturday. Do you think this could stick as the rotation like order for a while?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to predict like how this stuff plays out. I have no problem with this. One of my most competitive teams. It's been a while. We had a year at Auburn. We rolled through the SEC, and our best pitcher, one of the guy that pitched in the big leagues for a good while, threw on Sunday the whole year. So how you line this up, number one, is the health and safety of the guys. And then if you feel like getting into a weekend, somebody's clearly better on Friday and you try to tier it that way. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. Some people would tell you throw your most competitive, complete guy on Saturday to give your bullpen Friday and Sunday a little bit more rest. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think it's similar to talking about the lineup. It's the quality and the consistency, and then clearly the health and how it lines up. But if the guys do their job, these three have shown they're all very competitive. So it's hard to pick, an order right now looking at next week. I need to see how this goes. And then we'll turn to the following week and see if there's a reason or even a thought of shuffling it again on a shorter week.
Coach, do you have any injury updates about the guys in the outfield, Delamalure, Williams, Plain?
Delamalure's back, ready to go. Chase Williams, we're still a little ways away, but trending in a really positive direction. Plain, pretty significant setback. Like we're not close there yet. So one's ready, one is getting ready, and the other one is still on hold for a while.
Coach, and then I also have a scheduling question for you. I'm not the first person to think of this, but have you and Coach Sully ever talked about making Florida State a weekend series, something like 3 stops in 3 days, or 1 year Tallahassee and 1 year in Florida?
I have not. It is a good midweek deal. Like, look at what was going on out here Tuesday. I know the game didn't go the way we wanted it to, but when you look at what that feels like, it sure adds a neat dimension to our community for this to be on a Tuesday. And I know spring break, these things are done so far out. Sometimes we're ahead of the school calendar and it's hard, but we have not done that. And when you're doing your midweek stuff, you do look at who you could play geographically to make it work in the middle of the week. And this clearly is one of those that we can do. And then you have the Jacksonville event, which is so cool to play in that park and the way that community rallies around it, and it's packed and it does financially help the programs. So it's okay the way it is right now. If you made that a weekend, it would be exciting, but I don't know that it's a necessity. I think those Tuesdays are pretty cool, and I think it's on the calendar, and it does add another cool aspect to the schedule overall. They get it, Jacksonville gets it, and we get it. I think it's okay.
What have you kind of seen out of Jacob this season and his resilience to get back on the mound?
When we came out with that poster, I said, you guys can put whoever you want on that poster, but I got one pick and Marlowe's going on that poster. To watch him pitch against us. When I got here, we rolled down to UCF and he pitched against us. And in this era, to think, okay, he's here, and the fact that he transferred probably caught the issue he had, because you have to reboot and go through a pretty extensive physical to onboard. So what turned out to be a negative experience, we needed to catch that. And it was a blessing we caught it in the transfer process because it needed to be addressed. The weight, it's fascinating when I ask him each passing, like, hey, what do you weigh? What do you weigh? To think about where the weight was after his procedures and where the weight is now, that recovery in itself is pretty remarkable. And to regain the strength, he has tremendous feel for what he's doing on the mound. So I think that's in the riding the bike category. I think he could get back to that and have the same feel that he had previously. The cardio calibration and just the strength were probably the hardest things for him to grab a hold of again. And for anybody, it's just remarkable that he's physically in the condition he's in. But then you get into competitive pitching and the workload in the body and what that feels like, and the adrenaline and all of the things from a cardio standpoint that are involved when you have a cardio issue. That was the biggest hurdle he had to overcome. But he's just a fun, classy guy, and I'm so happy that he's able to be out there. It's quite a story, and we have a role for him, and he'll continue to get better. And it's a little bit of a work in progress to regain your complete comfort with being on the mound after what he went through. But proud of him, and he's going to factor into this in a big way before it's all said and done.
Coach, back to the lineup. I don't know if you like divide the season up into sort of like, I don't know, portions, eras, whatever you want to call it. But like, with coming out of this non-conference slate, now it's the conference part of the schedule. Are you kind of trending in where you want to be offensively? Do you almost have too many options, or do you like where you're at and feel confident that things can get settled in here sooner than later?
I don't know if you're talking about like batting order.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not happy with where we are right now. There have been some guys that have done some really neat things. Just the overall feel of the at-bats has been a little bit of a concern. I think we're a little reckless at times, and when you're trying to accomplish great things and deliver and produce, the exuberance to go up there and do things sometimes takes you a little bit away from the art of hitting. And that's what I see. I have no complaints with parts of this and how it's looked, and the competitiveness of the first two guys have been relatively competitive. For Max is pressing. I don't know that the exit velocities could be better. There's just limited result. And Jackson West has had really some good at bats. And when you look at 13 walks and 5 punch outs, there's a lot of good decision making, but he doesn't have a lot to show for it statistically. So there are some guys that are probably statistically better than the numbers would indicate, like the at bat quality, maybe a little better, but I'm not set or feeling great about where we are top to bottom, and just the consistency of the at-bat overall. The guys absolutely work on it. They're working on it now. Like, we've got a scripted out plan of what we're trying to accomplish today. I think at times, more than anything, we're trying to do a little bit much, and sometimes that makes you a little too aggressive, which looks to me reckless, and you're swinging at pitches in counts that you would hope you recognize and take. But all in all, if you look at the numbers, you just look at the numbers, it's competitive. I just haven't felt like pitch in and pitch out, it's been quite as competitive as what I might have seen against our own staff leading up to the season.
Do you think like the message is being received though? Do you think these guys are able to kind of recognize, as you said, maybe some of the over aggressiveness at the plate, and they'll hopefully be able to dial it down?
Yeah, the message is received. It's the toughest thing in maybe all of sports is trying to figure out the pitch recognition. And if you're looking for a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, and how do you recognize and when do you recognize that it's not that? What is it and where is that going? And should I take it? Should I swing? Those are tough things to learn. And it's probably the hardest part. Swing is totally different than hitting. Like we look at the swing stuff all the time, and the swings are in check. I think the pitch recognition, and you probably heard me talk about it with Cam Smith his first year. Sometimes that progression of recognizing where that breaking ball starts and where it's going to be when it's in the hitting zone, or where it's going to be when it's not in the hitting zone, are the most complicated yet critical factors in the art of what's going on between release and ball in zone.
Almost following up in that sense, more with two guys at the top of the lineup who have been good with Gage and Alex. I mean, how important is it for those two to get on early? I think Gage has got a hit in every game, and Alex, outside of opening day, has at least reached base. He went 0 for 4 with Florida, but he got the walk. So how important are they?
Those guys are great. And they understand, they understand the base running part. I think they understand the playbook. And when you have left, right, and then left, and then right, like I think it's tricky on the bullpen matchups, and that's part of the reason we try to stagger the lineup. Those two have been very competitive. And when you look at how hard they're hitting some of these balls and the impact, when you look at the exit velocities, it says a lot. And you look at Lodis, I've seen him hit balls out from the right field foul pole to the left field foul pole. And some of the balls he hits through the middle of the field, the consistency of the exit velocity has been really impressive. And Gage is right there. Like Gage has shot some balls into the left field corner. He's pulled balls, home run, ball off the center field wall. There's some juice there. And that's what you want. These guys work hard in the weight room. They work hard at their craft. And those two guys have been consistent with what they're doing. Basically swing, at bat, and knowledge of self.
Coach, you put a big emphasis this year on every game and every pitch having an impact, but is there another level or switch that you guys have to get to, obviously now that conference play is starting this weekend?
I don't think so. Like the consistency of how you approach this needs to be that. It builds off of the first game of the season, and you can't really change what you're doing because Florida was here, ACC's here, ACC tournament is here, like postseason. You have to approach this thing the exact same way. And that's the consistency that we fight for. And I think when we keep talking about the offense, I'm probably overcooking this a little bit and making you maybe feel that I'm more disappointed than I should be. But that's what we fight to do. So it doesn't really matter who we're playing or when we're playing or what we're doing. I told the guys, I was in spring training one year, and some of the major league guys came down to the weather in Tucson was jacked up, and we had to get some of the big leaguers some at bats. It's probably the best game of baseball I've seen in my life, and nobody watched it other than a couple of the Rockies staff and scouts. And we were on a backfield plane. I've never seen anything like it in my life, and that stuck with me. So when it's time to go, we have to go. And I don't think you're trying to do anything different than that because of who shows up in the other dugout. If you're doing that, you're probably not approaching the games the right way. And then are you trying to do more than you should because of who walks through the gate? So we try to keep it the same.
Coach, I'm curious, not so much about the game of baseball here, but just as a manager, as a coach, like what kind of formed your stance on talking about injuries? Was there anything when you were a player or in your short time in broadcast, I guess, just Some coaches get like really uncomfortable discussing injuries. I mean, I don't know for you, is it talking to the certain players and seeing if they're okay with you talking about what they're going through? I guess just what's kind of shaped you as a coach in terms of, divulging and revealing the injuries that your team's dealing with.
Well, there are sports at the professional level that do have kind of an injury report. We don't have that. So I'm protective of what my sports medicine staff tells me is appropriate in terms of discussing injuries, and I stick to that. And I have to. And I always protect the kid, and I stay with the rules that I'm given and how to discuss these things. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. But I try to keep it in the lanes as I'm asked to do. And I try to talk about availability best I can, and I try to relay a message. It is a difficult part of our sport. In terms of the players, you're going to go through these moments when guys are out. And it might be one pitch. To think that poor Evan had to come out of that game, like we're settling into that. Was that the greatest college baseball game played this week on Tuesday? I don't know who else played, but that's pretty good. So when that happens, you're one pitch away or one hit by pitch away from somebody not being out there. So we have to be able to press on regardless of who it is. It doesn't make the situation pleasant, but you have to do it. And you try to build a roster that gives you some leverage in case you encounter these. And clearly we have, and we're not the only program that encounters it. So it's a difficult thing. It's not pleasant. Tuesday was that walk out there. It's as tough a walk as you make because you see the look on Evan's face. You see it and you feel it, and you know how difficult that moment is for him, and to have him walk off the field's tough. So these are tough things, and I'm not sure that there's a right answer to how I handle it with everyone or how I handle it in the locker room. I just do within the confines of what I'm asked the best I can to manage it on the outside, and then clearly within the locker room too.
Any other questions for Coach?
Thanks, Link.
Appreciate it, Link.
Thanks,
All right,
Coach.
guys.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.